It's the sweltering summer of 1968, and deep in the heart of Daytona Beach, Florida, inside a nondescript garage that locals simply called the best damn garage in town, a wiry mechanic with a perpetual cigar clenched between his teeth is hunched over a workbench, surrounded by blueprints, discarded carburetor jets, and the faint hum of a lathe turning in the corner. That man was Henry Smokey Yunick, a World War II bomber pilot turned racing wizard whose name alone could make NASCAR officials break out in a cold sweat. And what he was building that day would become one of the most audacious acts of engineering defiance in American motorsport history, a Chevrolet 302 cubic inch V8 so potent, so cleverly twisted around the edges of the rulebook that it earned the moniker illegal before it even turned a wheel. Born on a Pennsylvania farm in 1923, Smokey Yunick wasn't handed a silver spoon or a fancy engineering degree. He learned his craft the hard way, cobbling together tractors from junkyard scraps by age 13 and earning his nickname from the smoke-belching exhaust of an old Indian motorcycle he raced as a teenager. By the early 1950s, he'd migrated south to Daytona, where the beach's hard-packed sands doubled as a makeshift speedway. And that's where he caught the eye of the burgeoning NASCAR scene. Bootleggers turned racers, pounding Detroit iron around dusty ovals, chasing glory and a few bucks in prize money. Yunick dove in head first as a driver, then as a crew chief, and quickly earned a reputation for squeezing every last ounce of power from engines that factory hotshots back in Detroit could only dream of, all while towing, or sometimes leaping over, the line of what the rules allowed. He helped develop Chevrolet's legendary small block V8 in 1955, a compact powerhouse that revolutionized the industry and powered everything from family sedans to moonshine runners. But it was his unyielding disdain for bureaucratic red tape that set him apart. As he once quipped in his gravelly drawl, "You don't race cars, you race the rulebook," a philosophy that would define his showdown with the 302. Fast forward to the late 1960s, a golden era for American muscle, when the big three automakers, Ford, GM, and Chrysler, were locked in a high-stakes arms race on the nation's superspeedways, pouring millions into factory-backed teams to dominate NASCAR's Grand National Series, where displacement limits hovered around 305 cubic inches for standard engines. But Smokey, ever the contrarian, saw opportunity in the shadows of those restrictions. Chevrolet, fresh off their controversial withdrawal from official NASCAR support in 1963 amid cries of favoritism toward Ford, was feeding Yunick parts under the table through back-channel deals, and he was tasked with creating a small block that could punch way above its weight class without tipping off inspectors. Enter the 302, a bored-out version of Chevy's proven 327, clocking in at exactly 302 cubic inches to skirt the letter of the rules while packing the punch of something far larger. But this wasn't your garden variety crate motor. Yunick approached it like a puzzle from hell, starting with the block itself, a stock-looking LT1 casting, but machined with razor precision to accept offset connecting rods that allowed for a wild 4-inch stroke on the crankshaft, effectively turning the engine into a torque monster without bumping the displacement over the limit, a trick that reportedly pushed output to over 450 horsepower on the dyno, numbers that rivaled the Hulken 426 Hemi across the showroom floor. He didn't stop there. Oh no. Smokey layered on the ingenuity like a mad chef with forbidden spices, fitting aluminum heads with massive 2.19-inch intake valves ported to within an inch of their lives, though he always swore it was just cleanup work, boys, nothing fancy, and crowning it with a cross-ram intake manifold fed by dual 4-barrel Hollies, a setup so thirsty for air it howled like a banshee at redline, revving past 7,500 RPM, where lesser engines would grenade into shrapnel. Whispers in the paddock suggested he even experimented with vapor fuel injection prototypes, preheating the gasoline to a misty fog before it hit the cylinders for near-perfect combustion, a concept years ahead of its time and straight out of his fever dream sketches for a hot vapor engine that could theoretically run on anything flammable, from moonshine to newspaper clippings. This beast found its home in a 1968 Camaro, a sleek, aerodynamic coupe that Yunick transformed from showroom stocker to Bonneville Bullet. Stripped of unnecessary sheet metal, reinforced with a custom chassis that offset the engine rearward for better weight distribution, and fitted with a dry sump oiling system scavenged from IndyCar scraps to keep the vitals cool under sustained assault. The car hit the salt flats of Utah's Bonneville Speedway that same year, and what happened next etched Smokey's name into the record books. With the 302 screaming under the hood, the Camaro shattered multiple land speed marks, clocking 180 miles per hour in the standing mile and logging endurance runs that left competitors' bigger displacement rivals choking on dust, all verified by the sanctioning body there, where rules were looser than a politician's promise. But Bonneville was playtime. The real battlefield was NASCAR's ovals, where Bill France Sr.'s iron grip on the sport meant every bolt and gasket was fair game for teardown. And that's where the 302's illegal label truly ignited like a backfired header. In 1969, Yunick shoehorned a variant of his creation into a Ford Mustang. Yes, you heard that right. A Chevy mill in a Ford pony car for a one-off assault on Talladega Superspeedway. A 2.66-mile behemoth that rewarded power and aerodynamics over brute handling. And the move was pure Smokey. Ford, desperate to counter Chrysler's Hemi dominance, quietly slipped him a Boss 302 Mustang racer from their Trans Am program, a factory hot rod built by Carcraft in Michigan, with disc brakes, a roll cage, and a purpose-built 302 that already made 290 horses stock. But Yunick gutted it like a fish, ditching the FE big block placeholder and installing his hybridized Shelly Hart, tuned to 465 horsepower at 7,200 RPM according to period dyno sheets from his garage logs, with tweaks like roller rockers and a radical cam profile that let it breathe free up top where the Hemis choked. Driver Bunky Blackburn strapped in, and from the drop of the green flag on September 14, 1969, the Mustang was a revelation. Light on its feet compared to the lumbering Chargers and Plymouths, it sliced through the pack like a hot knife through the butter, lapping the field not once, but reportedly twice in the 500-mile grind, its small block whale cutting through the V8 Symphony as it hit speeds north of 195 miles per hour on the banking, leaving legends like Richard Petty and David Pearson staring at taillights. Pit road buzzed with rumors. What's in that Ford? Sounds like a damn weed eater on steroids. And then, heartbreak. At around lap 300, a single rocker arm let go under the relentless pounding, likely from a hairline fatigue crack Smokey couldn't spot in his rush to homologate, and the Mustang coasted to a smoky halt, handing the win to Petty's Hemi on a silver platter. But not before inspectors swarmed like hornets, tearing into the engine bay with measuring tapes and borescopes, their faces turning from smug to slack-jawed as they uncovered the displacement sleight of hand and the non-Ford internals that screamed Chevy sabotage. NASCAR's response was swift and merciless. The engine was impounded, Yunick slapped with a $5,000 fine, chump change to him, but a public black eye, and the whole affair branded as a blatant violation of the manufacturer-specific clauses in the rulebook. Clauses that France had tightened just months earlier amid the factory wars, effectively banning cross-brand power plants and any exotic modifications that gave an unfair edge. Smokey, ever the showman, didn't slink away. He fired back in the pages of Hot Rod magazine and on the garage floor, railing against the good old boy politics that favored deep-pocketed teams over garage geniuses, pointing out that his 302 wasn't illegal by the printed regs. It measured 302 cubes dead on, produced power legally through airflow tricks anyone could replicate if they had the guts. But the spirit of the law, that was France's playground, and Smokey had kicked sand in the wrong sandbox. The controversy rippled outward, fueling debates that still simmer today among gearheads on forums and at car shows. Was it cheating, or was it the spark that forced NASCAR to rewrite its tech rules, paving the way for the standardized 358-inch limit in the 70s that leveled the playing field? Yunick's defenders, including drivers like Marvin Panch, who'd won the 1961 Daytona 500 under his wrench, argued it was the latter. Smokey's bag of tricks, from expandable fuel cells that grew during races to inverted engine mounts for better cooling, had always pushed the envelope. But the 302 was his masterpiece of loophole artistry, proving a small block could outgun the giants if you thought 3 steps ahead. Yet the fallout lingered. Chevrolet distanced themselves officially, though whispers persist of execs chuckling over cigars about the Daytona dagger that nearly upended the Hemi dynasty. And Yunick himself turned the episode into folklore, auctioning off 302 blueprints at his estate sale after his 2001 passing from leukemia, with proceeds going to young mechanics so they could learn to race the rules, not break them outright. Dive deeper into the garage lore, and you'll find echoes of the 302 in modern racing. Aftermarket heads mimicking Smokey's valve jobs, cross-ram intakes on crate engines, and even the offset rod trick resurfacing in dirt track specials. But it's the human element that sticks. Yunick's white jumpsuit stained with grease, his cowboy hat tilted just so as he outfoxed the suits, embodying that scrappy American dream where a farm boy with a slide rule could humble corporate titans. Interviews with contemporaries paint a vivid portrait.